Today on July 7th, Archangel Michael warns, someone you love is hiding a dark secret. Michael is angry because you keep ignoring his guidance. Open this before it's too late. Or today, on July 7th, Archangel Michael is speaking louder than ever before. His voice, once gentle, now roars with urgency. He has seen what you have refused to look at. He has witnessed the betrayal forming behind the smile of someone you love, and he is no longer whispering. He is angry, not at you, but at the darkness you continue to allow into your life while ignoring the signs he's placed before you. The veil is thin today, and time is no longer on your side. You must open your spiritual eyes before the secret they're hiding destroys everything you've built. Michael is not just warning you. He's standing at the threshold, sword drawn, wings ablaze, pleading for you to take this seriously. You've been feeling it, haven't you? The subtle shift in energy when they walk in the room, the sudden weight in your chest when you hear their voice, the gnawing doubt you push down with denial. These are not coincidences. These are spiritual alarms Michael himself placed around you, hoping you'd respond before it spirals. But each time you chose silence, each time you gave them the benefit of the doubt, the darkness rooted deeper. They are not who they pretend to be. The love you feel is real, but it is being used as camouflage. Michael has seen it all. The lies, the envy, the hidden intentions wrapped in sweet words. They smile while silently cursing your name. They embrace you while secretly plotting your delay. This is not paranoia. This is prophecy unfolding. Today, on this sacred threshold of July 7th, you are being pulled into a divine confrontation with truth. You have one more chance to listen, one more breath to respond. Type I am chosen to get blessing 4545. You've come too far to be destroyed by what's been sitting next to you all along. That's why this message found you now. Because today is different. Michael will not stay silent while your spirit is being strangled by emotional deception. You were marked for breakthrough, but the person closest to you has been quietly building walls around your destiny. And Michael is furious. His wings have shielded you for so long, but even divine protection requires your participation. You must choose to see you. Let this message strike your spirit. Let it rattle the chains of comfort that have kept you blind. The dark secret is not just a lie. They've been feeding off your light, draining your favor, and replacing it with confusion. And still, you've kept loving them. Still, you've kept trusting the shadow in disguise. But not today. Today is your divine interruption. Michael is standing at your door, pounding with a message soaked in righteous anger. Open this now, or the consequence will open you. Type I am awakened to get the blessing 5678. Archangel Michael has not spoken with this intensity in a long time. If you're feeling your heart race, if your thoughts are suddenly focused and still, that's not anxiety. It's divine recognition. Your spirit knows this message is real. Because deep down, you've already sensed the betrayal. You've questioned the motives of someone close to you, and punished yourself for thinking something so unloving. You labeled it overthinking. But Michael calls it spiritual intelligence. What you felt in your gut was never fear. It was divine discernment. You've been spiritually surveilled. Watched not only by heaven but also by something cloaked in affection. This person, this soul you've welcomed in, is not walking in the same spiritual light as you. They've mastered the art of false light. Smiles without sincerity. Support without sacredness. Every time you shared your dream, they applauded with their mouth and cursed it with their heart. They aren't clapping for your growth. They're tracking your moves, trying to sabotage your rise before heaven lifts you beyond their reach. That's why Michael is furious. He protected you even in your blindness. He covered you in your heart, led you into toxic devotion. But his mercy does not mean he'll allow this to continue forever. Some of the delays in your life were not divine no's. They were consequences of who you've let stay close. Michael did not block your blessings. You allowed someone to become your spiritual bottleneck. And today, he is showing you exactly who that is. Do not argue with this revelation. Do not seek confirmation from the very one hiding the sword behind their hub. Type I am rising to get blessing 2828. Remember how often you felt drained after being around them. That wasn't coincidence. That wasn't just a long day. That was spiritual extraction. They took your energy, your ideas, your divine covering, and traded them for comfort. Some people don't want you to break through because they depend on your brokenness to feel powerful. And this is one of them. They see your light but resent your shine. They love your presence but not your progress. And every time Michael tried to warn you, you brushed it off as imagination. But heaven is not in the business of coincidences. You stumbled on this message because Michael arranged it. He is reminding you of that recurring dream you had, the one you couldn't shake. The one where someone close turned their back, or where you kept running from something you couldn't see. That was not just a dream. That was a divine download, a warning encrypted in your sleep. And you woke up with a racing heart because your soul recognized it, even if your mind rejected it. Type I am shielded to get the blessing 9191. Michael is showing you the signs again, not to scare you, but to spare you. This isn't just about someone lying. It's about the spiritual cost of continuing to trust a counterfeit. He's not angry that you love them. He's upset that you're still defending their deception with your loyalty. Heaven never asks you to stay bound to someone out of guilt. True love corrects and protects, not manipulates and hides. And this person has been hiding behind the shield of I care, while aiming daggers at your purpose the moment you turn your back. Don't dismiss the patterns. You've noticed that when you get closer to a breakthrough, something always happens. They discourage you, distract you, or suddenly fall into chaos that forces you to rescue them. That's not random. That's spiritual sabotage disguised as emotional need. And you've been playing savior to someone who secretly envies your salvation. That's why Michael is roaring today. Because you've been praying for release, but clinging to your prison. You asked for peace, but you're still making room for the storm. Type I am protected to get the blessing 6363. Do not expect an apology. Do not wait for confession. The one who is hiding this dark secret won't come clean, because they don't see it as darkness. They see it as survival. They've justified their lies, buried their jealousy under fake praise, and called it love. Michael is not calling you to confrontation. He is calling you to clarity. This isn't about exposing them to the world. It's about removing them from your spiritual bait. You are too anointed to keep your heart open to someone who's using your vulnerability as a weapon. It's not too late, but it soon will be. Because divine patience is not eternal permission. You are being called into alignment, into exposure, into awakening. Heaven has not forgotten your cries, but it will not bless what you refuse to separate from. And the blessing that's coming, the favor that's been delayed, is still hovering above you. But Michael can't deliver it while you're still partnered with poison. This is your moment of truth. Will you let go of what's draining you, or keep embracing the arms that hold a hidden blade? Type I am choosing truth to get the blessing 7474. You've spent years praying for open doors, for breakthroughs, for a shift in the heaviness you carry. And yet, every time your spirit inches toward elevation, something unseen pulls you back. That unseen force has a face you know, a name you speak with love, and a place at your table. Michael warned you, elevation exposes everything. But what he didn't say, until now, is that sometimes the thing holding you back is not a demon in the shadows, it's a familiar voice cloaked in love. The betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet agreements you make with people you're afraid to lose. You keep praying for God to reveal your enemies. But what if that prayer has already been answered? What if the enemy wears the disguise of support, using your compassion as their camouflage? You asked for a sign, and Archangel Michael answered with delay, fatigue, sudden confusion, closed doors, yet you blamed yourself, your faith, your effort. Not once did you consider the one beside you. Not once did you question their role in your spiritual stagnation. And now, the warning is no longer subtle. Michael is ordering clarity, now. Type I am aware to get the blessing 5151. They know how to mirror your light. They speak your language. They echo your values. But look deeper. There is no fruit behind their flattery. Only theft of energy, opportunity, peace. Some people are spiritual parasites, harmless on the surface, deadly if given access. This is who Michael is revealing today. And you must stop confusing soul ties with divine assignments. Just because you share history doesn't mean you share destiny. This person was only meant to walk beside you for a season, not anchor themselves to your purpose. Their time is up. Michael's anger isn't like ours. His fury is holy. It burns not to destroy you, but to burn away what endangers you. That's what this confrontation is, a holy fire meant to break the invisible contract you made when you chose loyalty over truth. This is not betrayal. This is survival. You are not turning your back on them. You are turning your face toward your calling. And Michael is standing guard, ready to cut ties that your heart is too afraid to sever. Not out of cruelty, but because divine timing waits for no one. Type I am delivered to get the blessing 7272. The secret they hide is not just about deception, it's about interference. Their presence, their energy, their intentions have been interfering with your downloads. Heaven has tried to show you dreams, give you instructions, activate gifts, but your spirit has been too entangled in confusion. This person thrives in your uncertainty. As long as you remain unsure, they stay empowered. That's why every time you gain clarity, they spiral into chaos. That's not your burden, it's their weapon. Emotional confusion is how they reset your focus onto them and off of your mission. The more you try to help them, the more you're pulled under. And you've mistaken that sinking for empathy. No, that's spiritual drowning. And Michael has sent lifelines before, through friends, through intuition, through silence. But now he's sending fire. Because if you don't let go now, the cost won't just be delay. It will be disconnection. You're not just risking your timing. You're risking your assignment. And the enemy knows that if they can't take your faith, they'll settle for taking your focus. This person has become that access point. If this word has stirred your spirit and ignited boldness within you, consider showing your support with a super thanks of $20. Your generosity empowers us to continue releasing prophetic guidance, clarity, and strength to those journeying from betrayal to blessing. You can also support our mission through PayPal donation by clicking the support here link in the video description. Every contribution makes a meaningful impact and helps us keep creating and sharing with you. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss a moment of divine instruction, heavenly insight, and spirit-led guidance designed for your breakthrough. Type I am breaking free to get the blessing 8989. Let this word sear the veil that has covered your discernment. You've prayed to be used by God. You've asked to walk in favor. But divine power cannot partner with deception. And as long as you share space, secrets, and energy with someone housing that deception, your progress will crawl while your spirit cries. You felt it, the friction between your spirit and your circumstances. That isn't failure. That's misalignment. Heaven has not forsaken you, but it will not partner with sabotage. Michael is making that crystal clear today. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it feels like losing something sacred. But what you're releasing is not holy. It only appeared that way. And heaven will always require surrender before acceleration. You want movement. Let go. You want clarity. Disconnect. You want divine restoration. Obey. It is not enough to hear this word. You must act on it. Michael has placed this message in your hands because the spiritual war around you is intensifying, and the one beside you isn't shielding you. They're letting arrows pass through to weaken you. So here is your choice. Cling to counterfeit connection or rise into consecrated clarity. You cannot have both. You cannot hold their hand and hold heaven's sword at the same time. One will drop. One must. And when it does, everything will change. The weight will lift. The cycle will break. The confusion will shatter. And Michael will roar, not with anger, but with triumph. Because you finally chose you. The real you. The called you. The protected you. The one who can no longer afford to love the lie more than the truth. Type I am reclaiming peace to get the blessing 3434. You've been carrying a truth too heavy to face. The lie you loved was dressed in loyalty. It sounded like support. It looked like connection, but it never bore fruit. Michael knows you didn't mean to be deceived. You weren't blind. You were hopeful. You believed that the love you poured out would change them. You thought if you kept giving, they would start giving back. But spiritual parasites don't learn to love. They learn to feed. And this person, wrapped in your trust, has been feeding off your destiny in silence. They watched you dream and smiled. They heard your pain and nodded. They saw your breakthrough approach, and deep down, they prayed it wouldn't arrive. Not because they hated you, but because they hated the part of you that reminds them of everything they buried in themselves. And every time you rose, they shrunk. Every time you glowed, they dimmed. And instead of healing, they chose to hide their envy behind closeness. Michael calls that counterfeit affection. And today, that counterfeit is being exposed with the fury of heaven. You can't pray this away anymore. You can't fast it into peace. Some things don't need healing. They need ending. Michael is not telling you to fix it. He's telling you to release it. The delay is not about God withholding. It's about you holding on. Heaven has not changed its mind about your calling. But heaven will withhold acceleration when you refuse separation. This is what you must understand. Revelation without removal becomes disobedience. And you are standing on the edge of obedience or oppression. Again. Type I am choosing light to get the blessing 8585. They didn't confess because they never thought they'd be caught. They didn't stop because you never set the boundary. But now, this message is the boundary. Archangel Michael is drawing a line in the spirit. Either you remove the influence or you forfeit the inheritance. And you may think that sounds harsh, but it's not punishment. is protection. You've mistaken gentleness for holiness, silence for peace, and tolerance for love. But divine love corrects, and Michael is not whispering anymore. You've spent sleepless nights wondering why your atmosphere felt off, why your prayers hit ceilings, why your peace evaporated without cause. Now you know. Because while you were seeking God, someone you trusted was leaking your spirit. They watched you rise in power and quietly resented it. But their actions were not just emotional, they were spiritual. Words spoken against you in hidden places. Conversations meant to discredit you wrapped in fake concern. This is spiritual warfare disguised as friendship. Type I am walking away to get the blessing 6161. Michael is uncovering the whispers. Not just the ones spoken with words, but the ones spoken through energy. The quiet pull you felt away from your path. The subtle guilt they planted every time you focused on yourself. That wasn't just personal manipulation. That was spiritual interference. And you kept excusing it. You told yourself, they are just going through something. But months passed. Years passed. And you were still carrying the weight of someone else's spiritual laziness while heaven waited for you to drop it. You are not responsible for their healing. You are responsible for your obedience. And this moment, this warning, this clarity, is the final call to choose obedience. Michael is not only revealing the one who's hurting you, he's revealing the cost of keeping them close. Because every time you stayed silent, you handed them another piece of your spiritual authority. And that's why the enemy used them. Not because they were strong, but because they were close. Close enough to touch your soul without setting off your alarm. Type I am reclaiming my spirit to get the blessing 2929. The warning is not a suggestion. It's an intervention. Michael has protected you long enough. Now he demands partnership. And partnership looks like action. It looks like drawing lines, saying no, letting go, even when it feels like betrayal. Because what you're letting go of was already betraying you long before this moment. They don't need to curse you aloud to block you. Their silence, their apathy, their passive sabotage had been cursing you for years. And heaven says, no more. Today, you reclaim your vision, your alignment, your voice. Michael is not asking you to fight them. He's asking you to forget the fantasy you built around them. Because that fantasy is what's been stealing your fire. They won't clap when you cut ties. They may guilt you, manipulate you, even cry. But don't confuse emotion with repentance. This isn't about their feelings. It's about your future. And your future will not bloom in contaminated soil. Michael is clearing the ground. Now you must do the digging. Now that Michael has exposed the root, the next move belongs to you. The separation you're being called into is not selfish. It's sacred. Heaven is not asking you to be cold, but to be clear. There is a difference between love and spiritual access. You can love someone without allowing them into the deepest chambers of your spirit. Michael isn't asking you to become bitter. He's calling you to become wise. Because what's at stake isn't just your peace, it's your position. Your anointing has a timeline. Your calling has a clock. And they are ticking louder by the hour. You've prayed for breakthrough. You've cried for divine timing. But what you didn't realize is that some blessings are waiting behind the wall you built with compromise. God did not change his promise. He's still ready. But his promise requires purity, not perfection, but separation from what defiles the mission. And this person, whether they realize it or not, has defiled it. Their energy isn't neutral, it's draining. Their words aren't innocent. They're strategic. And their presence isn't harmless. It's been holding you hostage in spiritual slow motion. Michael has hovered long enough. He's shielded long enough. But heaven will not bless what you refuse to separate from. And the blessing you've cried for is hovering. It's within reach. But it cannot coexist with the influence of the very person who doesn't want you to touch it. That's why the dreams feel distant. That's why the clarity fades. That's why every spiritual high is followed by confusion. Because you keep inviting the thief back to the vault. And Michael says, no more. Type I am separating to get the blessing 4848. Some of the emotional pain you're feeling right now isn't heartbreak, it's detox. Your spirit is unraveling the soul tie. The weight in your chest is not from loss, it's from liberation. And yes, it will ache. Because release is always painful when the wound was disguised as comfort. But don't mistake pain for misdirection. Sometimes the pain is proof you're finally making the right move. That ache is not grief. It's your soul breathing for the first time in years. You're not losing love. You're shedding a lie. Michael reminds you, alignment always requires adjustment. And the deeper your calling, the more precise your relationships must become. You can't walk into a divine atmosphere dragging spiritual deadweight. It's not cruelty to protect your calling. It's obedience. And obedience is the only language heaven responds to when favor is on the line. You've been warned with dreams, with delays, with unease. But now, this message is your final gate. Cross it or stay bound. Heaven will not do for you what it requires you to do with your own will. Type I am ready now to get the blessing 1214. You may think, what if I'm wrong? What if I misjudge them? But Michael says no. You're not judging, you're discerning. And your discernment isn't born of fear, it's born of wisdom. Look at the patterns. How often do you feel small after sharing something sacred with them? How many times have you paused your own growth to make room for their comfort? How many times have you silenced your spirit to avoid making them insecure? These are not signs of love. These are red flags of soul-level sabotage. Heaven never partners with manipulation. And the longer you allow it, the more contaminated your calling becomes. You were not made to be their emotional anchor. You were called to soar. And eagles cannot fly with weights tied to their feet. They've had access to you for too long. Access to your energy, your insight, your prayers. But they've turned that access into entitlement. And entitlement, when unchecked, becomes abuse. Not always loudly, but consistently, quietly, spiritually. And Michael is demanding you wake up from this slow suffocation. Type I'm no longer blind to get the blessing 3939. This is your moment of spiritual separation. Not just from them, but from the version of you that allowed it. A version of you that mistook comfort for covenant. That version must die for your destiny to live. You're being reborn in this decision, in this grief, in this revelation. You may feel alone, but heaven is applauding. The angels are rejoicing, not because of the pain, but because of the breakthrough it brings. You're not walking away from someone. You're walking into divine atmosphere. You've been chosen, covered, protected. But now you must partner with what heaven has been trying to do in your life. Michael is placing the sword in your hand, not to strike with anger, but to sever with courage. Sever the attachment. Sever the illusion. Sever the story you told yourself to justify their place in your life. Because on the other side of this pain is purpose. And the only way to get there is to walk out, clean, clear, and completely unattached. You've come far now. You've seen behind the curtain, felt the grip loosening, and still, there's that trembling part of your soul wondering if it's really time to let go. But Archangel Michael speaks again. Yes, it's time. Because proximity is not harmless. Who you allow near your spirit shapes your atmosphere, alters your direction, and influences your destiny. And the person you've been protecting has already proven they can't be trusted with your next season. Their smile is warm, but their energy is cold. Their words are soft, but their intentions are sharp. And heaven is done watching you bleed silently. They don't have to speak curses for the damage to be real. Spiritual harm is rarely loud. It's often whispered through repeated disappointments, subtle mockery, and unspoken envy. Michael has traced the trail, each moment of confusion you've had, each divine assignment you abandoned, each open door you delayed walking through. Many of those weren't coincidence. They were the result of proximity. You've allowed someone to sit at your table who has been spiritually spitting in your cup when you're not looking. And that must end now. This is not paranoia. This is divine revelation. Heaven does not send messages without cause. If this word found you, it's because Michael has watched long enough. He has seen the delay, the sadness, the spiritual fatigue growing like mold in your joy. And now, he's declaring war, not on your behalf, but with your participation. Because war in the spirit requires action in the natural. You cannot keep entertaining confusion and expect clarity. You cannot keep pouring into sabotage and expect overflow. Type I am shifting to get the blessing 7878. Think about it. How many moments of divine momentum were you talked out of? How many times did this person say, "Are you sure that's for you?" Or maybe you're trying too hard. That wasn't concern. That was subtle sabotage. Because the insecure can never celebrate the called. And you've been explaining your passion to someone who only claps when your fire dims. Michael is revealing this pattern not to shame you, but to free you. Because if you don't recognize it now, it will repeat with a new face and a new season, and cost you even more. Even their kindness was calculated. The way they stepped in when you felt low. The way they kept you dependent by saving you just enough to stay, but never enough to grow. That is not support. That's spiritual manipulation. They became your lifeline in storms they secretly created. They whispered calm after provoking your chaos, and they positioned themselves as your refuge so you wouldn't see that they were the source of the unrest. Michael calls it what it is, demonic mimicry dressed as companionship. Type I am breaking cycles to get the blessing 4040. You may feel torn. You may hear the voice of guilt. That's normal when you've been groomed into silence. When you've been gaslit by someone who weaponized your empathy. But guilt is not your guide. Truth is. And the truth is, your spirit has been grieving every time you said yes to their comfort and no to your calling. Every compromise left a bruise. Every delay drained your momentum. Every second of silence stole a breath from your destiny. And now, the spirit is reclaiming what was lost. You're not crazy. You're not cruel. You're not abandoning anyone. You're aligning. And spiritual alignment always exposes spiritual misalignment. That exposure is happening now. And yes, it may come with resistance. They may plead, guilt, or pretend to change. But Michael warns, do not be fooled by temporary softness. Some spirits soften only when they sense they are losing control. Don't mistake relief for repentance. Look at the fruit, not the face. Look at the pattern, not the promise. Type I am aligned to get the blessing 2323. Michael is reordering your steps, not just emotionally, but supernaturally. As you release, expect shifts, sudden clarity, burdens lifting, dreams returning, favor unlocking. You'll feel lighter, not just mentally, but spiritually. That's not magic, it's divine realignment. Because the moment you stop feeding sabotage with your silence, heaven starts feeding your future with acceleration. This is the trade. This is the exchange. You lose one person, but gain your entire purpose back. So breathe. Let go. Don't rehearse what could have been. Don't cling to memories that were mostly manipulation. Honor the lesson. Release the liar. Michael has his sword drawn, not for destruction, but for division. Division between past and promise. Between you and the shadow you've entertained too long. The next chapter demands that you turn the page fully. No bookmarks. No pauses. No compromise. Just obedience. Just clarity. Just freedom. You've done something powerful, something heaven honors. You said yes to release. And in the unseen realm, something shifted the moment your spirit agreed with truth. Michael felt it. The heavens recognized it. The weight you've been dragging behind you for years is now loosening. The tension in your chest, the fog in your mind, the quiet grief in your joy is lifting. Not because of a miracle outside you, but because of a decision within you. Michael is not just watching you. He's moving for you now. Because surrender is the currency of supernatural acceleration. But don't mistake this moment as the end of the battle. In fact, it's the beginning of your authority. What was once heavy will now try to return through guilt. What you've cut off will attempt to reconnect through nostalgia. The enemy doesn't just use people to delay you. He uses memory, sentiment, and emotional residue. And if you're not vigilant, you'll find yourself revisiting what you've already been rescued from. Michael warns, do not romanticize what heaven has revealed as warfare. You are not being asked to rewrite the past. You're being called to walk away from it entirely. This is where your voice matters most. Not just in prayer, but in declaration. You cannot be silent in the season of severance. You must speak truth into the atmosphere. Declare what you're releasing. Announce what no longer has access to you. Because silence in the spirit is permission, and you've unknowingly given too much permission to someone who wrapped harm in warmth. And now, the healing must begin with a holy roar, not a whimper of regret. Speak what is ending. Prophesy what is beginning. Heaven is waiting to echo your words. Type I am walking in truth to get the blessing 4747. You may feel resistance. Not all spiritual warfare comes in the form of chaos. Sometimes it arrives as silence, loneliness, and second-guessing. The very person you cut off might suddenly act kind, apologetic, or emotionally vulnerable. But Michael reminds you, the same spirit can wear different masks. Do not be fooled. Do not reopen the gate you've just closed. This isn't about them being not that bad. This is about them not being meant for your next level. You don't need them to be evil for the separation to be holy. You just need them to be misaligned. And misalignment always costs more than comfort is worth. The longer you stay in spaces you've outgrown, the more uncomfortable your calling becomes. That's what you felt, the dissonance between your anointing and your surroundings. You've tried to adjust, to shrink, to wait for change. But heaven isn't adjusting anymore. It's inviting you to ascend. And ascension always requires detachment. There is no rising while clinging. You must choose what stays and what gets left behind. Type I am elevating to get the blessing 8686. Now look around. Listen. Your environment will start to change. The energy around you will shift. Some relationships will naturally fade. Others will fight to remain. But don't be shaken. The spiritual climate is responding to your obedience. Doors that were stuck will begin to move. Ideas you shelved will return with clarity. Prayers that felt blocked will rise with ease. This is what happens when you remove the resistance. You're not being punished for releasing them. You're being positioned. Michael is clearing the air around you. The whispers that once confused you will quiet. The spiritual noise will fade. And in its place, stillness. Presence. Divine instruction. What once felt cloudy will become clear. But only if you stay out of the places that cost you your clarity. Never forget, God doesn't just anoint you for what's ahead. He protects you from what's behind. And some people were allowed into your past but have no authority in your future. Michael is your gatekeeper now. Let him guard what you once gave away freely. If this word has stirred your spirit and ignited boldness within you, consider showing your support with a super thanks of $20. Your generosity empowers us to continue releasing prophetic guidance, clarity, and strength to those journeying from betrayal to blessing. You can also support our mission through PayPal donation by clicking the support here link in the video description. Every contribution makes a meaningful impact and helps us keep creating and sharing with you. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss a moment of divine instruction, heavenly insight, and spirit-led guidance designed for your breakthrough. Type I am guarded by heaven to get the blessing 5552. This is more than a reset. This is a divine restructuring. Your identity is being reshaped by your decisions. You are no longer who you were before this message began. And though the world may not see it yet, the heavens already do. The shift isn't coming. It has already started. Don't rush the fruit. Just honor the seed. Every boundary you now hold, every no you declare, every silence you maintain, it is watering your destiny. Let the healing take root. Let the silence become sacred. Let the grief transform into glory. Because very soon, what hurt you will have no hold on you. What delayed you will have no access. And what you've left behind will become the evidence that you finally understood your worth. Michael isn't just your protector. He is your witness. He watched you endure, weep, pray, and now rise. And he is still speaking, still leading, still roaring. Not just with warning, but with confirmation. You are no longer bound. You are becoming. Now that the veil has lifted and the detachment has begun, the next phase is not about loss. It's about becoming. Michael has always seen this version of you. Draw, focus, disciplined in spirit. But the person you used to be was buried beneath the weight of connection that never served your ascension. This is why the heavens didn't just ask you to let go, they commanded it. Because only through holy separation could the real you emerge. Not the version constantly surviving betrayal, but the one finally stepping into divine identity without distortion. This is the moment when purpose becomes louder than pain. Yes, the ache of separation still lingers, but underneath it, something sacred is forming, clarity. A fog is lifting. A doubt is fading. And in its place comes the roar of destiny. That roar isn't coming from the outside. It's rising from within you. Because when you remove the wrong presence, your soul can finally breathe freely again. And where breath returns, so does boldness. Heaven didn't rescue you from bondage just to leave you in survival mode. It rescued you to ignite you. Michael now stands beside you not just as guardian, but as coach. His wings no longer only shield, they point forward. Every time you take a step toward your divine assignment, you'll feel it. A lightness. A fire. Assertive courage. That's not adrenaline. That's angelic momentum. You chose in obedience. And now, acceleration begins. Slowly at first, but steadily. What took years will begin to manifest in weeks. Not because time changed, but because you did. The old version of you couldn't hold what God is about to place in your hands. Type I am becoming to get the blessing 7,779. You'll notice something else too. People around you will start responding differently. Not because they changed, but because your energy did. When bondage is broken, your very presence becomes disruptive to the spirits that once felt comfortable near you. Don't be surprised when certain people grow distant, uncomfortable, even hostile. That's not rejection, it's confirmation. They were attached to the version of you that tolerated confusion. But now that you're walking in clarity, the counterfeit can no longer camouflage itself. This will be the season of uncomfortable peace. You'll feel moments of stillness so deep, they may even unsettle you. Don't rush to fill the silence. Don't run back to chaos to feel normal. You are not who you were. You don't need noise to feel needed. Peace is your inheritance. And peace, once contaminated, takes time to rebuild. Let Michael guard it. Let the silence become sacred. This stillness is where strategy is born. This is where divine downloads come. This is where your next instructions will arrive, without interference. Type I am anchored in peace to get the blessing 6,165. But be vigilant. Just because you've made the break doesn't mean the test is over. The enemy doesn't surrender without a final attempt. Sometimes he doesn't try to keep you bound. He tries to drag your thoughts backward. Regret, guilt, nostalgia. These are tools of delay. And if he can't tempt you with their presence, he'll tempt you with the memory of it. That's why you must not just sever the soul tie, you must starve it. Don't revisit the photos. Don't rehearse the moments. Don't reread the texts hoping to find a reason to stay soft. This doesn't mean becoming hard. It means becoming whole. You're not walking in anger. You're walking in awareness. Forgiveness is not permission to return. Forgiveness is a closure strategy. Michael wants you to know, the door you've closed must remain sealed. Do not let sentiment become sabotage. The season ahead is far too heavy with purpose for you to be reaching back with one hand. You must be all in, all forward, fully surrendered, fully focused. Type I am focused forward to get the blessing 1212. This is the phase of divine refinement. The things that used to distract you will no longer pull at your spirit. What once consumed your time now feels foreign. This is not detachment. It's transformation. When you walk in alignment, what fed your lower self begins to repulse your higher self. You're not losing passion. You're realigning it. The energy you wasted defending yourself to the wrong person is now going toward building the right future. And heaven rejoices when you reassign energy toward your destiny. Michael smiles over you now, not because the journey is over, but because you've crossed the threshold of self-awareness. You're no longer asking, why did they do this to me? You're now asking, what does God want to do through me? That is the shift. That is the sacred pivot. That is where the oil flows. And as long as you stay in this posture, open, listening, obedient, the enemy will have no entry. Not through people, not through pain, not through pressure. You sealed the gate with truth. You've reached the point where your spirit is no longer just aware, it is fortified. This is where many fall back, where many return to what's familiar. But you won't. Because now you know that familiarity is not always favor. What's familiar may feel safe, but that doesn't mean it's sacred. You're walking through a spiritual refinement that not many endure. Michael is surrounding you not just to protect, but to empower. You're not being shielded from danger anymore. You're being strengthened to stand in the face of it and say, "No entry." This is a word you must begin to declare, not just with your mouth, but with your life. No entry for confusion. No entry for false love. No entry for manipulation dressed in apology. No entry for spiritual freeloaders who drain you, then disappear when your soul needs nourishment. Heaven is reinforcing your boundaries now because your new season cannot afford compromise. Your assignment is too valuable. Your anointing is too rare. Your authority is too costly to be shared with those who never carried the weight of your warfare. You're not being asked to walk in suspicion, but in discernment. Michael isn't teaching you to be guarded. He's teaching you to be gated. There's a difference. Being guarded comes from fear. Being gated comes from wisdom. A gate opens and closes with discernment. It decides what deserves entrance. It doesn't shut out love, it filters for alignment. And that is what your spirit is now doing. You're filtering the energy around you with a divine intelligence that cannot be fooled again. Type "I am divinely gated" to get the blessing 7472. You'll begin to feel it. Certain conversations won't sit well anymore. Certain environments will feel suffocating. Not because you're judging, but because your frequency has risen. And what used to fit your atmosphere now agitates it. That's confirmation. Don't ignore it. When Michael elevates your discernment, your discomfort becomes a message. Don't try to shrink back just to stay liked. You weren't chosen to blend in. You were chosen to break patterns. And some patterns can only break when you refuse to participate in their rhythm again. That includes emotional manipulation. You now recognize the cycle. Someone causes harm. You call it out. They minimize it. You forgive quickly. And they return just long enough to repeat it. But now you stepped out of that cycle. And the moment they realize they no longer have access, they will shift their strategy. They may call your healing cold. They may call your clarity pride. But understand this. Anyone who is threatened by your boundaries was never there for your growth. They were there for your availability. Type "I am protected by clarity" to get the blessing 5353. This is why you must keep your gate strong. Not out of fear, but out of reverence for your calling. You're not the same person who allowed everyone to sit at your table. You've learned, some people come hungry but never bring a dish. They eat your peace, sip your joy, take leftovers from your presence, and leave you starving. That is not communion. That is consumption. And your spirit is not a free buffet for the spiritually lazy. Michael is helping you reclaim the menu of your presence. You decide what is fed now. Who sits close? Who hears your vision? Who prays with you? Who speaks into you? This is not arrogance. It's alignment. Because when you give the sacred to the unprepared, you risk contamination. Heaven is pouring fresh oil on your head now. But oil must be preserved. And your boundaries are now anointed. They are not walls to isolate. They are walls to consecrate. This is sacred space. You are sacred space. Type "I am sacred ground" to get the blessing 3436. In a sacred space, you must start walking differently, thinking differently, Speaking differently, you are not just healing, you are now leading. Others will watch how you separate without bitterness, how you rise without revenge, how you flourish without flaunting. And in that, you will become a living message, a testimony of what happens when a person finally chooses truth over trauma, clarity over connection, obedience over comfort. You're not here just to be free. You're here to set the standard for what freedom looks like. Michael stands at your side not as a protector alone, but as a witness to this transformation. He's seen what it cost you to release what your heart still had questions about. He knows how hard it is to say no more to the person you once wept for. But he's also seen your resilience, your obedience, and your quiet courage. And now, heaven is responding with alignment. Doors are unlocking. Strategies are arriving. Peace is returning. Because you finally sealed the gate and chose the glory. What you've just done in the spiritual realm cannot be overstated. You didn't just cut a soul tie, you shifted an entire atmosphere. The spiritual climate around you has changed. Michael has swept the ground clean. The residue of confusion, the whisper of manipulation, the fog of guilt, it has all been cleared. You may not feel it instantly, but watch what happens in the coming days. Peace will return like a wind, strong and unexpected. That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. Because when heaven clears space, it always follows with glory. You will start to feel your own voice again. For too long, your inner dialogue was clouded by someone else's presence, what they might think, how they might react, whether they'd approve. That mental loop was a cage. And now, Michael has broken it open. You're going to rediscover how it feels to hear yourself without interference. Your voice will sound stronger. Your thoughts will be sharper. Your decisions will flow without second guessing. That is what happens when a gate is sealed and the sacred is guarded. Now, you're building a new atmosphere, one that doesn't require you to shrink. An atmosphere where your purpose has space to grow, where your spirit isn't negotiating to keep someone comfortable. And Michael reminds you, you don't need to apologize for the space you take up. The people who belong in this next season won't be intimidated by your expansion. They'll be inspired by it. Let this new peace offend those who thrived in your chaos. You are no longer the protector of fragile egos. You are the protector of divine alignment. Type I am walking in power to get the blessing 8583. Understand this. Healing is not passive. It's warfare. And now that you severed the tie and cleanse your atmosphere, the enemy may try to re-enter through back doors. Not through the person you cut off, but through new distractions, new seductions, or disguised assignments. That's why Michael is still standing watch. But he needs your agreement. The gate won't stay shut if your spirit reopens it through curiosity, guilt, or sentiment. Stay rooted in truth. You don't need one more conversation to confirm what heaven has already revealed. And the more obedient you remain, the more your discernment will sharpen. What once felt blurry will now feel crystal clear. That's not pride, it's clarity. And clarity is costly. Not everyone can walk with you when your spirit starts rejecting what used to entertain you. You'll feel it soon. The urge to be alone. To think deeply. To pray longer. To detach from what feels artificial. That is not isolation. It's consecration. You're being drawn inward to be launched upward. Michael is preparing you for elevation, but elevation requires concentration. Type I am consecrated to get the blessing 4343. As your atmosphere cleanses, so too will your circle. And you must not panic when people begin to distance themselves. That's the power of purity. It agitates everything impure. You won't even need to explain. Your presence will do the exposing. The person you used to need validation from will suddenly feel distant. Not because they changed, but because your spirit stopped begging. You're no longer operating from lack. You're no longer assigning value to people who never honored your worth. Michael calls this divine disconnection. Let it happen. You're going to notice the weight of spiritual pressure lift. Not all at once, but gradually, like fog burning off in sunlight. That's the peace you've been praying for. It was never gone. It was just covered. Covered by voices you placed above your own. Covered by doubt sown into you by someone who feared your confidence. Now those layers are shedding. You're emerging, not as a survivor, but as a carrier of glory. And carriers of glory don't chase validation. They don't seek approval. They walk in divine awareness. If this word has stirred your spirit and ignited boldness within you, consider showing your support with a super thanks of $20. Your generosity empowers us to continue releasing prophetic guidance, clarity, and strength to those journeying from betrayal to blessing. You can also support our mission through PayPal donation by clicking the Support Here link in the video description. Every contribution makes a meaningful impact and helps us keep creating and sharing with you. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss a moment of divine instruction, heavenly insight, and spirit-led guidance designed for your breakthrough. Type "I am a carrier of glory" to get the blessing 9195. Let this truth settle deep. You are no longer spiritually entangled. What held you before has no authority now. Michael broke the cycle, but you maintained the break. That's what's shifting everything. Heaven celebrates not just your pain, but your persistence. You could have returned. You could have second-guessed. You could have called, texted, revisited. But you didn't. You stayed aligned. And now, the windows of favor are opening. Not because you earned it, but because you aligned with it. The lie that once dictated your worth is gone. The person who once managed your emotions is no longer on the throne of your decision-making. And now, you are finally positioned to build a life that is unshakable. Peace is no longer temporary. Clarity is no longer fleeting. Purpose is no longer delayed. The atmosphere has shifted. Your gate has been sealed. And heaven has released the next wave. All that remains is your yes to it. Now that your atmosphere has been cleansed and your gate is sealed, the next step is to build, not from survival, but from strength. You're no longer patching holes in a crumbling structure. You're laying the foundation of something new, something unshakable, something rooted in divine truth and protected by heavenly force. Michael stands not just at your gate but around your vision. Every plan that aligns with your true calling now has permission to breathe, to grow, and to be blessed. Because the war for your clarity has already been won. But here is where many falter. They mistake the clearing as the completion. It is not. You've made room, yes, but now you must fill it intentionally. Just because your house is swept clean of spiritual debris does not mean the enemy won't return looking for vacancy. That's why Michael isn't just cleansing, he's furnishing. Your time, your thoughts, your heart must now be occupied by what aligns. No more filling your space with temporary comfort. No more inviting distraction and just because silence feels strange. You are no longer living by impulse. You are living by instruction. The unshakable life is not created in chaos. It's created in consistency. That's what heaven is anchoring in you now, divine discipline. That may not feel dramatic, but it's powerful. It means rising early when your flesh says sleep. It means saying no when your old wounds crave validation. It means walking away from what once gave temporary relief to protect eternal peace. This is your architecture season. Heaven is giving you the blueprint, but you must show up to build. Daily. Faithfully. Without needing applause. Type I am building strong to get the blessing 1414. You'll notice the difference almost immediately. What used to feel difficult will begin to feel natural. Your discernment will guide you. The boundaries you once feared will now feel like safety. Your energy will no longer scatter. You'll protect your mornings. You'll guard your time. You'll choose conversations that elevate rather than entertain. And through all of it, Michael is reinforcing your decisions. Because every disciplined act is a declaration. I'm no longer available for sabotage, spiritual or emotional. This is what it means to walk in spiritual maturity. You're not just reacting anymore, you're governing. Your emotions are no longer dictators. They are indicators. And your spirit is now in command. This is the fruit of obedience. This is what heaven was trying to grow in you when it allowed the destruction. It wasn't punishment. It was pruning. Every cut was preparation for this clarity. Every heartbreak was a holy redirection. You weren't just delivered, you were developed. Type I am rooted in growth to get the blessing 7274. And now, the people sent into your life will be different. They will not come in competition. They will not shrink when you shine. They will recognize your boundaries as sacred, not offensive. These are kingdom alignments. Heaven is no longer letting you waste time on false covenants. These people will speak into you with love, not leverage. They will correct you without controlling you. They will celebrate you without secretly resenting your victories. That's how you'll know they are not sent by their wounds. They are sent by God. But remember, this alignment is delicate. Don't let loneliness create your Don't let your past trick you into believing real connection doesn't exist. Michael reminds you, what's divine may take time to arrive, but when it does, it doesn't confuse. Divine connection confirms. It brings peace, not pressure. Stillness, not tension. Truth, not games. And until those connections arrive, your solitude is not punishment, it's protection. Let this season of pruning become the proving ground of your next level. Type I am patient for the divine to get the blessing 5155. You are no longer just recovering. You are reclaiming. Piece by piece, step by step, your life is coming into alignment. And the foundation you're now laying will outlast storms. People may not see the depth of your work, but heaven does. And so does the enemy. That's why the attacks were so strategic. They weren't trying to ruin your personality. They were trying to collapse your architecture. Because if your foundation stays strong, nothing thrown at you can destroy what's built on it. This is your stronghold now, not fear, but faith. Not desperation, but destiny. You are not at the mercy of emotions, situations, or personalities anymore. You are not begging to be chosen. You are not chasing what was never meant to stay. You are no longer giving energy to people who didn't honor your anointing. You are not apologizing for revolting. You are not shrinking to soothe someone else's discomfort. You are rising. And the foundation beneath you is being reinforced by every decision you make to honor the truth. Michael is still watching, still guarding, still smiling. Not because you've arrived, but because you've aligned. And alignment, more than arrival, is what activates the miraculous. You're becoming unshakable, not because storms won't come, but because now you know who you are, who you've released, and what you refuse to carry again. Now that your foundation is secure and your discernment sharpened, the storms will still come, but this time you will not be shaken. This is the transformation Michael has been preparing you for, not to avoid the storm, but to rise above it. Because heaven never promised you a storm-free life. It promised you a storm-proof spirit. You were never meant to run from battle. You were meant to walk through it with the calm of someone who knows they are covered. A difference now. You've stopped inviting sabotage to sit beside you while the rain falls. You've learned that the real test wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't the manipulation. It wasn't the emotional chaos they caused. The real test was whether you would stay small to keep someone else comfortable. The real test was whether you would allow guilt to stop you from stepping into glory. And now, heaven celebrates, not because you avoided the battle, but because you chose truth inside the tension. That is what gives you power now. Not the absence of struggle, but your refusal to surrender to the wrong voice. Michael has not left your side. He is circling now, higher than before, not because he fears what's coming, but because he sees what you are becoming. He sees your posture, your prayer life, your pace. You no longer move with the anxious urgency of someone trying to earn love. You move with the deliberate stride of someone who knows they are protected, chosen, and called. That's what it means to live above the storm. You're not just walking, you're commanding the atmosphere around you. Type I'm rising above to get the blessing 3699. What used to confuse you now confirms you. The silence of people who once spoke loudly in your life no longer bothers you. It liberates you. Their absence is no longer a wound. It is a witness. You no longer crave closure from those who never gave you honesty. You no longer look for understanding from people who benefited from your misunderstanding. That's what alignment does. It takes the sting out of the separation. What once triggered your overthinking now affirms your awakening. And that awakening isn't just emotional. It's prophetic. You've started to hear things differently. Not with your ears, but with your spirit. Michael is fine-tuning your perception so that what others call coincidence, you now see as confirmation. You recognize divine delays. You sense when someone's spirit is off, even if their words are sweet. You no longer ignore dreams that shake you awake. You no longer excuse discomfort as just stress. No, you know better now. That's discernment. That's protection. It's power. Type I am awake in the spirit to get the blessing 4741. You may start to feel misunderstood in this phase. That's not a sign of error. It's evidence of elevation. The higher you rise, the fewer people will be able to relate to your perspective. Don't descend just to explain. Don't compromise just to be understood. You were never called to be relatable. You were called to be revelatory. And revelation always comes with the burden of solitude. Even Jesus had to step away from the crowds to hear the Father clearly. You are not exempt. You're not being punished with isolation. You're being positioned for insight. So walk through this new season with reverence. Not fear. Reverence. Every step you take is prophetic now. Your presence shakes rooms because you carry clarity. Your words will carry weight because they come from stillness, not survival. And your spirit will discern quickly because it has been purified through obedience. You are not here to blend in. You are here to restructure the atmosphere. When you enter a space, confusion must leave. When you pray, cycles must break. When you declare, the heavens respond. Type I am carrying clarity to get the blessing 2225. Let this settle deep into your soul. You are no longer in the waiting room. You are in the war room. Not for warfare that destroys it, but for society that builds. You are now co-building with heaven. Your dreams are no longer optional, they are assignments. Your peace is no longer fragile, it's fortified. Your discernment is no longer occasional, it's constant. And your authority is no longer borrowed, it's anchored. You are who you were always meant to be, whole, protected, prophetic, powerful. Michael sees you. God trusts you. Heaven backs you. And every step you take now carries a spiritual ripple. You are affecting generations with your decisions. You are interrupting generational curses simply by saying no more to people, patterns, and mindsets that used to own you. The storm didn't stop you. The betrayal didn't define you. The silence didn't destroy you. And now, the atmosphere has shifted, not just around you, but within you. You've weathered the silence. You've endured the separation. You've risen through the storm. Now you stand not just healed, but crowned. Not with gold or applause, but with clarity. Clarity is your new crown, and it rests quietly on your head with authority that no human affirmation can give or take away. You've earned this, not through perfection, but through obedience. Not through being understood, but through being faithful even when misunderstood. Archangel Michael is no longer just guarding you. He is now escorting you into a new era of divine responsibility. This isn't the season to shrink in humility. It's the season to walk in holy confidence. Because heaven did not preserve you through that spiritual battle for you to return to timidness. You're not just free, you're redefined. You no longer carry the identity of someone who's trying to prove their worth. You now walk with the energy of someone who has survived sabotage and kept their crown intact. And this crown, your clarity, your focus, your fire, must now be guarded with the same vigilance that got you here. But understand this, now that you wear clarity, you will be watched. People who never saw you before will suddenly see you. Some will admire. Some will mimic. Others will misunderstand. Don't let that shift your posture. You were not crowned for approval. You were crowned for impact. Michael reminds you, kings and queens don't explain their every move to the court. They make decisions based on divine alignment, not popular opinion. This is how you must now move, not to be seen, but to be strategic. Type I am crowned in clarity to get the blessing 6369. And with the crown comes the call. Who will you now become? Because the false version of you, the reactive one, the anxious one, the one who sought love in the arms of betrayal, is gone. Shedding that skin was painful. But what remains is the truth of who you've always been beneath it. Chosen. Holy. Essential. Appointed. Anointed. You are not a background character in the kingdom of God. You are a warrior strategist, placed here in this generation to shift atmospheres, to break cycles, and to re-establish heaven's standard in your sphere of influence. You were not protected all this time to keep your light hidden. You were protected so it could be purified. You are now ready to lead, not just speak. To build, not just dream. To go forth with oil on your hands and fire in your words. Heaven is not waiting for you to feel ready. Heaven has already declared you are. And Michael stands with sword raised, not because you're still under threat, but because your authority now attracts attention. Not all warfare is attack. Some of it is a response to your awakening. Type I am walking in divine authority to get the blessing 7874. Your old language won't fit in this new season. Listen to your words. Are they still dressed in fear? Do they still echo the voice of the one you released? You must now speak from your new place. Words matter. That's why the enemy fought so hard to make you doubt yourself, because he knew the power of your voice. Now that your voice is clean, sharp, and calibrated in truth, heaven is releasing instructions to you that you couldn't hear before. Not because they weren't being spoken, but because your frequency was still entangled. But now, your spiritual signal is strong, and what once felt like divine silence will now erupt with divine direction. Dreams will return with meaning. Warnings will come in whispers. Revelation will meet you in unexpected moments. This is what it means to be a vessel. You don't just receive blessing, you receive burden. And it's a holy one. To see what others ignore. To know what others deny. To carry fire in your bones while walking gently in peace. This balance is what makes you dangerous to darkness. Type I am trusted with revelation to get the blessing 9198. Be mindful. There's still temptation ahead. Not to fall back, but to dim down. Some will ask for the old you. The agreeable one. The softer one. The smaller one. But Michael warns, what they miss isn't you. It's their control over you. You've risen too far to be accessible in that way again. You don't owe access to anyone just because they remember who you used to be. Memory is not a covenant. Proximity is not purpose. You are allowed to rise without explanation. This is sacred evolution. Your atmosphere is now your responsibility. Protect it with everything you've got. Guard your mornings. Honor your rest. Discern your conversations. Cleanse your heart quickly. You're not called to live in conflict, but you are called to maintain consecration. The blessing you now carry will attract both angels and watchers. Michael will keep covering you, but he also expects your cooperation. He can only defend what you choose to keep holy. And so, walk in this truth. The crown is not a trophy. It's a target. But it's also a signal to heaven that one of God's warriors has come into alignment. A signal to the earth that divine order has been restored in you. And a signal to the enemy that you are no longer someone to be played with. You are sealed, chosen, and untouchable by confusion. Now that the journey has unfolded, the veil is lifted, the ties are severed, and the atmosphere is purified, there is only one thing left to do: stand. Stand in who you've become. Stand in the truth you embraced. Stand in the clarity you reclaimed. You are no longer tangled in confusion, no longer begging for clarity, no longer bending to deception masked as affection. You are standing now in the full authority of someone who heard heaven's warning and responded. Archangel Michael did not come to you in anger without cause. His urgency was sacred. It was heaven's last call to step out of the shadow someone you love had cast over your soul. You didn't just hear the message. You heeded it. You felt the sting of separation, but you didn't turn back. You chose alignment over approval, purpose over proximity, peace over performance. And because of that choice, everything ahead of you will look different. Because now you are different. Do not wait for applause. Do not expect others to understand what had to die inside you so you could rise. They won't see the full weight of the warfare you endured in silence. But heaven saw. Michael witnessed it all. And now, the heavens celebrate not only your freedom, but your faithfulness. You kept walking when your heart was trembling. You kept trusting even when nothing made sense. And now, God is about to honor what you did in private with fruit that will be public. Your life will bear the evidence of this shift, not just in what you gain, but in what you refuse to allow back in. You've crossed a line in the spirit. The version of you who tolerated cycles has expired. The atmosphere has changed. The contract has been cancelled, and the darkness that once followed you has been denied entry. You didn't just leave the old behind, you burned the bridge that led back to it. And that is why no storm, no voice, no spirit from your past will be able to reclaim you again. You are marked. You are sealed. You are known in the heavens as one who obeys under pressure, and the earth will feel the impact of your next steps. Not because you're louder, but because you're clear. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you're aligned with everything God whispered over you before you were born. And now, it is so. If this word has stirred your spirit and ignited boldness within you, consider showing your support with a super thanks of $20. Your generosity empowers us to continue releasing prophetic guidance, clarity, and strength to those journeying from betrayal to blessing. You can also support our mission through PayPal donation by clicking the Support Here link in the video description. Every contribution makes a meaningful impact and helps us keep creating and sharing with you. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss a moment of divine instruction, heavenly insight, and spirit-led guidance designed for your breakthrough. Type I am sealed in glory to get the blessing 9999.